You're listening to an episode of the Abigail Pugh podcast with, you guessed it, Abigail Pugh. I'm an introverted mama who took my online business from 0 to 7 figures in 15 months selling my own digital products on social media. And guess what? I did it all with my 3-year-old daughter no less than 3 feet away from me at all times. Now I'm bringing you everything I've learned about building a wildly profitable online business that supports your life while allowing you to truly live it. Get ready for raw, honest conversations with entrepreneurs making thousands per month selling their own digital products and people just like you who ditch self-doubt to create the life they've always wanted. If you're ready to make more money, have more impact, and still have time for the things that matter most, you're in the right place. Grab your sneakers, head out on your hot girl walk, and let's dive in. Today, we are back with another student episode and one that I am so excited for. I love chatting with my students that have basically changed their entire life with digital products. So today is Stephanie. She is a registered dietitian and a mom of 2 girls who are 4 and 6 with baby number 3 on the way this summer. But her journey started with her first pregnancy where she was surprised at the minimal focus that there was on nutrition during this critical time. And as a dietitian, even her pregnant friends were asking her for help with what to eat to help with common pregnancy symptoms like nausea, heartburn, fatigue, and appetite fluctuations. All the fun stuff that comes with being pregnant, right? And this was when she knew she wanted to become a resource for pregnant women to gain confidence in their food choices throughout their own pregnancy journey. Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. I feel like I always love the stories where you're creating your digital product based on a problem that you have, because I feel like a lot of the time we think, oh, it has to be this like big, grandiose problem. And it's like, no, like think about the things that you've gone through personally and how you can help other people get through them as well. Because this resource, like this was not around when I was pregnant with Charlie, and it's around now, thank goodness. And I'm definitely going to use it for next baby, but it is something that I feel like is not talked about a lot. And that's what I feel like makes the best digital products, when it's something that you have personally gone through, worked through, realized, hey, people are not getting the help they need on this. I'm going to create the resource for it. So I love that. Take us through a little bit of your journey. I'd love to hear kind of like where you started with this business, when you realized, hey, I need to create a digital product instead of kind of doing the traditional one-on-one coaching with dietitian stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey to get here. So I started my business, an Instagram account, exactly 5 years ago. I was pregnant with my second, and I was working at a children's hospital at the time and realized like I don't want to be stuck working a 9 to 5 with having 2 kids at home, like, just thinking about school drop-offs. Like, I don't understand how 2 working parents do all the things when you have school-age children. So I was like, okay, I need to, figure out how I can continue to work as a dietitian. I loved it, but be a little bit more flexible. So that's when I kind of discovered the online space. And for years, I was doing one-on-one or group programs, which I actually really enjoyed because I like having that connection and truly supporting a mom through their pregnancy.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't scalable in the sense like trying to coordinate times to meet with moms from all over like different time zones when they had kids, I had kids. It was just like impossible.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah. So I didn't even know what a digital product was or that it was an option. And I had actually, right before discovering you, I think you were the first person I ever heard talk about digital products. I had actually bought like a course for literally a couple $1,000s to try to build out a course. I was like, okay, I'll just build a course so I can reach more people, and help more people without having these time constraints and all of that. And I hadn't started making the course yet. And I found a picture that I screenshotted of you of one of your posts that I wasn't even following you. It was like probably showed up on my For You page of a chat GPT prompt.
Oh my gosh, I remember that reel. It went like mega viral.
That was the one. Yeah. And so that's how I discovered you. And then you started talking about digital products. So I was like, I polled my audience. I was like, would you prefer a course or more of like a PDF type document. And that was the first time I ever considered it. And it seemed like more people wanted like a
Yep.
PDF. And so that really got the wheels turning. I didn't know what I was going to create it on yet. But at this time, I was kind of just helping women with their pregnancy nutrition
Huh.
in general. It was like not specific to symptom management. It was just more like giving them the confidence that they're eating the right foods for
Huh.
pregnancy. I was working with some moms who had gestational diabetes. Symptom management was a part of it, but that wasn't the main focus.
Yeah.
But I had my account, my Instagram for a few years now. So I had a bit of a following. And so, I had conversations and DMs with people. So it just kind of clicked that
Huh.
like the symptom management was more of like a problem solution based
Yep.
as opposed to just educating on
Huh.
nutrition for pregnancy. So, the funny thing is dietitians hate meal plans. Like we hate making meal plans for people just because they're not so realistic
Yeah.
for someone to learn like how to fuel their body if they're just following a designated plan.
Yeah.
But during pregnancy, it's so temporary and specific. It's not like lifelong changes you need to learn
Yeah.
to make on your own. And so again, I pulled the audience and I was just thinking about what people reached out to me the most for. And
Huh.
so many people always wanted meal plans, meal plans, meal plans.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, I think I just need to make a meal plan because it's what the people want.
Yep.
Yeah, and then it just sort of clicked all together and I started making it on Canva on my own, but I had bought your Rich Girl Reels. The first round that you ever did was in October, and I started following it to build up my wait list because
Huh.
I wasn't done, with my plan yet. So that was really cool because I wouldn't have really known what to do
Huh.
to launch.
Yeah.
It was a launch without, in my mind, it wasn't like a launch, quote
Yeah.
unquote, because I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just figuring it out. But the Rich Girl Reels, like I think my account grew like 5,000 followers over that first month.
Oh,
And
wow.
I don't remember how many, but there were like hundreds of people on the wait list for like this product. And so I launched it in November of 2023, my first one. So it's called the Feel Better Pregnancy Meal Plan. That is 30 days of 3 meals and 2 snacks for each day that are comfort food based
Huh.
because typically in your early pregnancy, when you're struggling with symptoms, that's what you're wanting.
Give me all the carbs.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, the bagels,
Yeah.
the carbs, but it boosts nutrition in
Huh.
easy to tolerate ways. So like you would never see a meal that's like a plate of chicken, rice, and broccoli. Like
Oh my God. Even just thinking about that, like thinking about being pregnant and thinking about broccoli, I'm like, oh, nope, nope.
totally, like no way. So it's just kind of sneaky ways to get a nutrition. And we know that a lot of symptoms can actually be managed by better blood sugar
Huh.
control. But most people are only craving carbs or able to tolerate carbs. And that puts your blood sugars on a roller coaster, which then ends up making your nausea, exhaustion, heartburn worse. So it's such a catch-22. And so the
Yeah.
plan really focuses on like, how can we get in some proteins and easy to tolerate foods that kind of help stabilize those blood sugars a little bit better.
That's amazing. Now, when you launched this first digital product, did you stop doing one-on-ones and focus solely on the digital product, or how did that kind of transition go for you?
Yeah. So the year kind of before that, I was kind of in a lucky position where I was really focusing on taking care of my kids. My husband, was supporting us and I wasn't really focusing on working a whole ton just in our phase of life. So I hadn't been seeing one-on-ones and was kind of trying to figure out what was next for me. So it was kind of a transitional year.
I love that. Now, do you remember how that first launch went? I know that you're kind of like, it wasn't really a launch, which I actually feel like that's really good for the first one where you just like get the product out into the world. And then I feel like launch 2 and on can be like really strategic. But I feel like sometimes just getting the product out there and learning how to sell it and having something to sell, in my opinion, it's so much easier to create content when you have an end goal of a product to sell. It's kind of hard to create content when you have nothing to sell, in my opinion. Like, so I love that you just got it out into the world. But do you remember how that first launch went at all?
I remember how much I made from that first launch. Yeah, I don't like know the number of sales. I mean, I could figure it out, but I made 7K in the first month. Yeah.
That's crazy. And I feel like it's so easy to be like, oh, she started her Instagram and then just like had a 7K launch. It's like, no, she spent several years building that up and doing one-on-ones first and seeing what people wanted and listening to her audience. I don't know how many times you said it where like you're like, I didn't want to do this, but I pulled my audience. And I feel like that's one of my biggest things that I say to people is that sometimes you have something in your head and you're so stubborn and we're like, no, I want to do this. But it's like, no, you need to listen to what your audience needs. Because Stephanie very easily could have been like, you know what? No, I'm just going to do something different because I don't want to do a meal plan. When it's like her ideal audience needed that meal plan. So I love that you kind of listen to them, even though it's not exactly what you had in mind. Okay, you launched your first digital product. I know you sold that one for a while, right? How did that go? Did you feel, I feel like some people get not bored, but it's a little boring to sell the same product over and over. But it really teaches you how to sell. So how long did you sell that one first product?
13 months. Which, looking back, I wish I would have not waited as long in between. But to be honest, it was so much work to create it and so time consuming that it was like a nice break to just sell and not have to be like focused on building something new.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a totally different part of your brain to be building a new product than it is to just be selling something. And I feel like what you're, selling and educating on is like there's like an added layer of stress because it is working with pregnant women. And like there's a lot more risk when you're working with things like this, anything medical related, but especially with pregnancy. So I love that. I feel like I went from product to product in the beginning just to launch all my offer suites. And I love it. I wouldn't change a thing of what I did. But now I'm more in the phase of like, okay, I just want to sell what I already have because I love my offers and I don't want to be in the mindset of like creating something new all the time. So I love that. If you are listening and you are new to digital products, I would recommend selling your first one for at least 6 months. Like learn how to sell, learn your messaging. The more you create content around a product, the better you will see what people resonate with. And it's so easy to go into this like launch mode all the time because launches, they are fun. They do bring a nice bump of sales, which I'm not saying don't ever launch anything and don't have fun with that, but I think you'll learn a lot more by sticking to like one offer. I'd say at least 4 to 6 months. And really just learning how to sell that one thing and listening to your audience, seeing what they need next, and not feeling this pressure to constantly be selling and creating the next thing because it's really hard on your brain, in my opinion. It's really hard for my brain to kind of do both at the same time. And I get into like this mode of like, well, I'm just creating. And I'm like, oh wait, I still need to make sales. Like, I can't just stop. Okay, so you launched that first product, sold it for 13 months. I love that. Now you launched your second one. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So I'm trying to I worked on this one for a lot longer. I think just phase of life, the kids, like just trying to fit it in at nights and then I'm tired, so it took me a lot longer to create this one, but it's another 30-day meal plan, similar layout, but this is specifically designed for the second and third trimester, supporting your nutrition for your specific needs in the second half of pregnancy. So it's called Beyond the Symptoms. So Feel Better Pregnancy Beyond the Symptoms. So it doesn't focus on, those comfort foods or symptom management. It's just specifically designed for your increased nutritional demands of pregnancy.
I love that.
So aside from just the meal plan with the recipes and the weekly grocery list, there's also a lot of additional kind of details and education on certain particular nutrients that maybe people don't get education on,
Yeah.
where you can find them and what foods, why it's important for your body during, this phase of life. I also have a section for gestational diabetes because usually that gets diagnosed in your second trimester.
Yep.
So it's a little bit beyond just a meal plan.
Yeah.
And yeah, so kind of after that first trimester, once you're feeling better, then this is like a great next step for the rest of pregnancy.
Notice how her products are in order. She's launching them in order that somebody would need them, which I highly recommend that. Not to say that if you launch your products and then you're like, oh, I forgot a step, I can go back and launch that. Totally do it to get it into your offer suite. But I will always recommend kind of going and launching your products, your digital products in the order that somebody would need them so that people can buy the first one, be like, oh my gosh, I love this. I need more of this. And then buy the second one when they are ready. So I love that you kind of went in that order. It's so smart. And it just kind of helps your audience know what to do next after they've bought that first product from you. So is the second product a PDF as well?
Yeah, it's exactly the same format. It's a PDF and then it links to, like Google Drive and Google Docs for the recipes.
Awesome. Yeah, you guys, I got a lot of pushback in the beginning for like pushing PDFs and things like that. But as a mom, I don't have time to sit down and listen to a 27-part online course. Like I am not someone that likes online courses. I much prefer a PDF that I can kind of reference back to anytime that I need it. So I'm always team PDF first. I think it's an easier digital product to create first as well. Like if you're not used to filming yourself, if you're not used to being on camera, like creating an online course as your first product, like that's a lot of pressure. And it's really easy to kind of give up on that. Whereas with a PDF, you are really able to like fit in creating it whenever you need to. It's not something that you're like, well, I need to be camera ready to film today, or I need to have a quiet house. No, you can kind of create it whenever you want. So keep that in mind too. If you haven't created one yet and you're like, oh, I don't know what to start with, I always recommend PDF Guide first. I think that it lets you, create it whenever you want, but it also kind of tells your brain you can do this, right? So that if your next product, you want to create a course, you have the proof already that you can do this, right? And you're just like taking it a step farther. So I love that. Okay. Launch number 2. How did that go?
Really well. I didn't have really expectations, but, and I guess I haven't like separated that particular product, but I realized when you have 2 things that you're selling, it just stacks. And
Yep.
so in the 2 months that I've been selling, now having 2 products, my revenue has increased like 170%.
Oh my gosh.
Just having the one product.
Yeah.
So again, like I waited a lot longer than looking back, maybe I should have. But I also think that, like you said, it's such a learning curve,
Yeah.
learning opportunity. I feel like over the last year, just learning how to sell has been so new for me because I really didn't know what I was doing before that. And just the messaging
Yeah.
and getting people's natural testimonials and even just like hearing not necessarily negative feedback, but just all constructive criticism. I really welcome that. And I've made several updates to my plans just based on, what would be easier, what's missing. Like at first, I didn't have gluten-free or dairy-free substitutions. And people had made, just suggestions like, oh, my husband has celiac and it would have been helpful to have that. And so I went back in and every recipe I now offer vegetarian, gluten-free, and dairy-free substitutions for every single recipe. So it's just, again, it's not something you necessarily think about if you don't have these restrictions in your diet, but I want to make sure that I'm accommodating to people that do. So,
yeah, absolutely. And I feel like in the beginning, for me, it was like really hard to hear the constructive feedback, but you have to take it and run with it and make the changes based on what your people want. And now I'm able to just, take it at what it is. Okay, this person, said this would be more helpful. Let me go in and test it out, right? And that's not to say you change everything based on feedback that you get. Like there's some feedback I get where I'm like, oh, well, that would be an entirely different product. It's just a preference that they have. But then there's other feedback where I'm like, oh, you know what? You're right. That would be super helpful. I hadn't thought of it like that. Let me update that. So I love that kind of piece of advice. Just any feedback you get, using that to make the next product better. And I feel like that's exactly what you did. And something else I want to note on your products is that you very easily could have launched your first product and had everything included. And I always say, you guys solve one problem at a time. Like you don't need to create a resource that solves, taking someone from A to Z. You can go from A to B or A to even C, and then the next product will help with the next thing. And I feel like that actually gets people to implement it better than having products where, she could have done like, first trimester to the fourth trimester, which would be like the whole time you're pregnant. And then the few months after when you have the baby, here's what you need to eat. And that kind of would have not made it possible for her to create other products based off that. So really narrowing in on solving one problem at a time so that your offer suite can kind of have multiple problems solved in it and they can come grab what they need when they need it. That's one of the many things I love about low ticket digital products is that you are able to do that. And it's exactly what I did too. Like I very easily could have done, a huge Instagram online course and included everything, right? But I broke it up into stories, reels, and like beginners for Instagram because I feel like it's kind of overwhelming sometimes when you get all the information at once. Like it's a lot of information. And I'm like, well, I want them to actually apply it. So I love that you separated those two. Now, can you walk us through something that you really struggled with? I feel like I had so many struggles and I turned them all into digital products after I figured it out. But when you were kind of in the creation process of your digital product, is there something that kind of held you up that you struggled with, and how did you work through it?
I don't know if it was necessarily in the creation process, but in the marketing aspect, like I have to say that my pregnancies I'm so grateful, have been relatively easy. Like I did have some symptoms, more so in my first pregnancy. And then during my second pregnancy, when I started this business, I was more knowledgeable on how to manage it. And so I really did implement some of the things that I teach to improve my own symptoms. And now again, with my third, I, continue to do so. But overall, I've had pretty smooth pregnancies. And so I would struggle with relating to some of the people who truly, are struggling with the vomiting and the severe nausea, who are on medications and things like that. And so I think just some of like my messaging or the marketing on that in terms of like improving symptoms, like some people get really offended when I make the suggestions on how to improve symptoms because, they're really struggling and they're doing their best. And so I think just like knowing the right things to say, like it can just be challenging because it's such a vulnerable time in a woman's life going through pregnancy. And I never want to make anyone feel shameful or, I don't know. I try to be supportive to everybody because I know every mom is doing the best they can. I think a lot of people just don't know that there are options beyond just a medication or just waiting for it to pass. And so my goal is to be educating on that. And so sometimes it can be challenging when you get nasty comments. I'm like, I'm not trying to offend.
No.
I'm just trying to educate. So I think just that aspect has been a little bit challenging.
Yeah. And I feel like with messaging in general, it is hard at the beginning because you want to call things out, but you don't want to do it in a way that's like shame-based marketing. Like I don't teach that. I don't like it. I do think there's a time and a place to like have some fun in your marketing and make it like, oh, shoot, like that's me, right? But you never want people to feel shame or feel bad about themselves when they are kind of watching your content. But in my opinion, like the messaging and figuring out how you want to talk to people, like that comes with practice. That comes by trying and seeing what works, what doesn't work. Some things are going to hit off really well and other things or not, or they're going to piss people off. And you're like, okay, I'm not going to use that wording anymore. Like, now I know. It's happened to me many times too, where I'll say something and I think I'm being like clever and funny. And then I'll get some comments like, oh, I did not like how you did that. And sometimes it's from people that I know are just trolling. And
Yeah,
I will always like go and click and be like, okay, like, is this my ideal customer or is this some random person on the internet that just like came to fight today? Right. But I think with messaging, you learn by doing.
exactly.
Nobody starts off their digital product learning having the perfect messaging. I didn't. My students don't. Like, it's not realistic. You learn that by putting yourself out there and trying things and seeing what works and what doesn't work. So I think it's a really good point because you do have a way more sensitive topic. And women who are pregnant, like, we've got crazy hormones going on. Like, we're very sensitive. Like, I'm already a sensitive person. And then when I'm pregnant, like, every commercial made me cry when I was pregnant with Bean. Like, everything made me cry. Like, seeing, like a family eating dinner together, I'd be like, oh, it's so sweet. And I was like, what is going on? I'm like, I don't know. It's really sweet. So you have that like added layer. So that is a little bit of a harder topic. I will give you that. Okay, I'd love to ask you what your favorite offer, digital product, I don't know what to call it, of mine that you've gotten and which one you feel like helped you the most in your journey.
So I got all of your Rich Girl Reels. There were 4 of them. And that's what I started with you. And that just was a huge game changer for me because it taught me how to sell.
Hmm.
And it taught me really more about learning who my ideal client was. And then actually, ever since then, I've bought everything. Rich Girl Launch was super helpful when I launched this new product, the stories. And then, of course, now I am an OG member of the community and will never leave.
Yes.
It is like, it's just so crazy because the amount that I've invested in business coaches over the last years is just makes me want to throw up compared to what I gain from your community. So yeah, like I literally would not be here in this position in my career if it was not for you. So I'm forever grateful for you. And yeah, this kind of chapter, like to be able to work with freedom. I have my 3rd kid on the way. I get to pick up my kids from school and be there for them. That's always been my dream. And to be able to do that and set my own hours and kind of be creative, like
Yep.
with just social media and also creating new products. Like it's such a dream.
Absolutely. You're so sweet. I'm smiling so big right now. I It's funny. I sometimes, I go through a lot of the same struggles as all of you guys. Like, no matter how successful your business gets, no matter how like many things you check off on our, these lists that we make for ourselves, like, if I do this, I'll be successful. I don't know if you guys do that, but my brain does this where I'm like, each milestone, I'm like, okay, if I hit this, then I'll be successful. But at the end of the day, I still have these moments where I'm like, am I making a difference? Am I helping? Is this helping? And usually it's during my luteal phase. I'm not gonna lie. I'm always very like doubtful, but I love it. And I started this business to help people feel exactly what you just described, which makes me so happy because I feel like we, especially as moms, if you're not a mom, this definitely still applies to you as a woman, but we as women, like, we want to help people, but we also have this urge to like enjoy our life. I don't know if you guys have that urge, but I do, where like I want to make an impact. I want to help other people, but I don't want to build this empire. Like, I don't want a team. I don't want all these people that I have to manage every single day. Like, I want to help my people. I want to be inside my community. And then I want to be able to shut my laptop and be with my daughter and be with my family for the rest of the day. And I feel like that's what digital products have given me. And now having my Rich Girl community, like seeing that I get to help other women and other moms do the same thing, it lights me up so much. So if you guys are not inside Rich Girl community, I will link it down below in the show notes. It is the place to be, in my opinion. You get weekly prompts every single week. And I don't do Rich Girl Reels live anymore, but the prompts inside the community are very similar to what I did in the live challenges with Rich Girl Reels. But it's focused more on selling and growing your audience because I do strongly believe that you need to do both. And I see a lot of people teaching like, oh, just grow, 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 grow. And I'm like, there's no point in growing Instagram if you're not able to sell to these people. Like, it has to be both. So Love Rich Girl Community. And it's the place to be. Okay, Stephanie, if you had one piece of advice for someone who is wanting to start digital products, but they haven't yet, what would it be?
Just do it. Just do it. I mean, obviously, I know how overwhelming it can feel if you don't feel like you know what to sell yet. But it'll change your life. So it's just kind of reinforcing everything that you teach, Abigail, or just say in general is, think of a problem that you might have or that someone has expressed to you. And again, it doesn't have to be a big problem and how you can solve it. And, your digital product also doesn't have to be some elaborate 100-page document, my meal plan is not that complex, but it's a need and it helps people and it's easy to follow. And I think that's what people need.
So figure out a problem that you solved for yourself and solve it for other people. And I just want to note too that what you first start selling doesn't need to be it for you. I started my digital product business with a completely different topic. And now what I do is completely different because I fell in love with something else. And because I created a personal brand in the beginning where I connected with people first, I made the connection with them. They trusted me. They liked me. Well, I don't know if they liked me, but they trusted me. They knew me. I shared my whole journey so that when I did pivot, they came along with me, right? And yes, I'm sure there were some people that are like, you know what, I'm not interested in this new subject, unfollow. Great. I'm not offended by that. I wanted to take them with me though, along for the ride. So don't feel like it's like this permanent decision of, okay, if I make this first digital product, everything else has to be related to this topic. It really doesn't. I think getting your first product out into the world is the most important thing because you have to kind of convince and prove it to your brain that you can do this. And then the world is your oyster. You can do whatever you want, in my opinion, after you launch that first one, because you know that you can do it. So Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on today. This was so much fun. I always love hearing from my students. And tell us a little bit about the 2 offers that you have so that if someone is listening and they are trying to get pregnant or they are pregnant and they would like help with this, I'd love to know where to send them. And of course, I will link both of these in the show notes below for you guys as well.
Absolutely. So the Feel Better Pregnancy Meal Plan is my signature plan that's designed for improving your pregnancy symptoms like nausea, exhaustion, heartburn. It doesn't necessarily have to be for the first trimester because I know some women struggle with symptoms throughout their pregnancy, but it's kind of designed for more of the symptom management in early pregnancy. And then beyond the symptoms is my next meal plan that's specifically designed to meet the increased nutritional demands of your second and third trimester. And then my plan for before this baby comes is to get my third meal plan out, which is going to be Feel Better Postpartum.
I love it. So smart. I'm going to be, when we have baby number 2, I'm going to be buying all of these products. I can't even wait. Okay, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you loved this episode or any other episode, I would really appreciate if you could go leave a review wherever you listen. Love you, mean it. And I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and my guests today. If you learned anything from our episode, I would love it if you could share it over on your Instagram stories and tag me at Abigail Pugh. Until next time, love you, mean it.